Have you ever held a 1996 quarter in your hands and wondered if it could be worth more than 25 cents? Well, you might want to sit down for this one because some 1996 quarters have sold for thousands of dollars at auction. That's right, thousands. And the crazy part? You might have one sitting in your spare change jar right now. The year 1996 was special for American quarters, but not for the reasons you might think. While most people were focused on the Summer Olympics in Atlanta or the presidential election, something extraordinary was happening at the United States Mint. They were producing quarters that would become some of the most sought-after coins in modern American numismatics. Let me paint you a picture of 1996 America. Bill Clinton was president. Gas cost about $1.13 per gallon, and people were just starting to hear about something called the internet. The Philadelphia and Denver mints were working around the clock, striking millions of Washington quarters just like they had been doing since 1932. But here's where things get interesting. Some of these quarters came out with mistakes that make them incredibly valuable today. The most famous 1996 quarter error is what collectors call the 1996 de-speared eagle variety. Now, don't let that technical name scare you. It's actually quite simple to spot once you know what to look for. On the reverse side of the quarter, where you see the majestic eagle with spread wings, there's supposed to be a clean, smooth design. But on these special quarters, there's what appears to be a thin line or spear that runs through the eagle's breast. This wasn't intentional, of course. What happened was a die clash at the Denver Mint. Think of it like this. Imagine you're using a rubber stamp, and somehow the stamp gets pressed against another surface before hitting the paper. That leaves an extra mark you didn't want. That's essentially what happened with these quarters. The dies that stamped the coins collided with each other, creating this distinctive spear-like line that now makes these quarters worth anywhere from $50 to over $500, depending on their condition. But the speared eagle isn't the only 1996 quarter that collectors are hunting for. There's also what's known as the 1996 D-Close AM variety. This one's a bit trickier to spot, but it's worth the effort. If you look at the word America on the back of the quarter, pay close attention to the letters A and M. On most quarters, these letters are clearly separated. But on the rare Close AM variety, the A and M are so close they almost touch. It sounds like a tiny detail, but collectors have paid over $1,000 for high-grade examples of this variety. Here's something that might surprise you. The Philadelphia Mint also produced some valuable 1996 quarters, though they're different from the Denver varieties. The 1996 P quarters can be worth significantly more than face value if they have what's called a double die error. This happens when the die that strikes the coin bounces slightly during the minting process, creating a doubled appearance on letters or numbers. These are harder to find than the Denver errors, but they're out there. Now, you're probably wondering how much these quarters are really worth. Well, that depends on several factors. A 1996 de-speared eagle quarter in average circulated condition might fetch $50 to $100 from collector. But if you find one that's in uncirculated condition, meaning it never spent time in someone's pocket getting worn down, you could be looking at $300 to $500. The very finest examples, what collectors call MS 68 or MS 69 grade, have sold for over $1,000 at major auction houses. The Close AM variety can be even more valuable. A typical circulated example might bring $200 to $400, but uncirculated specimens have sold for well over $1,000. The record sale for 1996 D-Close AM quarter was just over $1,500, and that was several years ago. Prices have only gone up since then. What makes these 1996 quarters so special isn't just their rarity, it's their story. These coins represent a moment in time when the traditional art of coin making met modern mass production, and sometimes those two worlds collided in beautiful, profitable ways. Every error coin tells a story of human craftsmanship, mechanical precision, and the occasional happy accident that creates something truly unique. If you're thinking about searching for these quarters, here's what you need to know. First, you'll need a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe. These errors can be subtle, and you want to be sure of what you're seeing before you get too excited. Second, condition matters enormously in coin collecting. A scratched, heavily worn quarter with a speared eagle might only be worth its 25-cent face value to most people, while a pristine example could pay for a nice vacation. The beauty of collecting 1996 quarters is that they're still findable. Unlike some rare coins that were made decades or centuries ago, these quarters are from our lifetime. People who got them as change in 1996 might still have them tucked away in drawers, piggy banks, or that big water jug where you throw your loose change. Every roll of quarters from the bank could potentially contain one of these treasures. I remember talking to a collector named Frank from Ohio who found a 1996 de-speared eagle quarter in his car's cup holder. He'd been carrying it around for months, using it for parking meters and vending machines, never knowing he had a $500 coin in his pocket. It was only when his grandson, who was getting into coin collecting, spotted the spear mark that Frank realized what he had. That quarter ended up paying for his grandson's first semester of college textbooks. Stories like Frank's happen more often than you might think. The 1996 quarters were minted in huge quantities, over 1.5 billion from both the Philadelphia and Denver mints combined. But the era varieties represent just a tiny fraction of that total production. Experts estimate that perhaps 1 in every 10,000 1996 D quarters shows the speared eagle variety, making them rare enough to be valuable, but common enough that dedicated searchers can still find them. But here's the thing about the 1996 quarter that really gets collectors excited. We're still learning about new varieties. Just last year, a collector in California discovered what appears to be a previously unknown die variety on a 1996 P quarter. The numismatic community is still studying it, but early indications suggest it could be worth significant money. This is what makes modern coin collecting so thrilling. You're not just looking for known rarities, you're potentially discovering new ones. The 1996 quarter also represents an important transition period for American coinage. It was one of the last years of the traditional Washington quarter design before the state quarter program began in 1999. In many ways, these quarters represent the end of an era, which adds to their nostalgic and collectible appeal for people who lived through that time. As we wrap up our look at the 1996 quarter, remember that coin collecting is about more than just money. Yes, finding a valuable quarter in your change is exciting, but these coins also connect us to our history, our craftsmanship, and our shared American experience. Every 1996 quarter was made by skilled workers at the U.S. Mint who took pride in their work, even when that work occasionally produced the mistakes that we now treasure. But the story of valuable quarters from the 1990s doesn't end with 1996. In fact, there's another quarter from this era that's been causing quite a stir among collectors lately. This coin has an error so dramatic, so obvious once you know what to look for, that it's amazing more people haven't discovered the fortune potentially hiding in their pocket change. But I'll tell you all about that incredible find in just a moment. Now, if you thought the 1996 quarter story was exciting, wait until you hear about what happened in 1982. This is the year that produced one of the most valuable error quarters in modern American history. And the shocking part is how many people have probably spent these coins without ever knowing they were holding a small fortune. Picture this. It's 1982, Ronald Reagan is president, and the country is dealing with a recession. At the Philadelphia Mint, workers are busy producing millions of Washington quarters, just like they do every year. But something went terribly wrong, or terribly right, depending on how you look at it. A batch of quarters was struck without the mint mark, creating what collectors now call the 1982 no mint mark quarter. And here's the kicker. These coins have sold for more than $10,000 at auction. Let me explain why this is so extraordinary. Since 1968, every quarter minted in Philadelphia was supposed to carry a small P mint mark on the front of the coin, just to the right of George Washington's ponytail. It's a tiny letter, barely noticeable unless you're looking for it, but it's supposed to be there on every single quarter. The Denver Mint uses a D, San Francisco uses an S, and Philadelphia uses a P. That's just how it works. But in 1982, something went wrong at the Philadelphia Mint. A small number of quarters were struck using dies that didn't have the P mint mark properly applied. These coins went into circulation looking perfectly normal to the average person. But to collectors who knew what to look for, They were instantly recognizable as major errors. The first 1982 no-P quarter was discovered by a sharp-eyed collector in Ohio who was going through rolls of quarters from his bank. He noticed that one quarter looked different. It was missing that tiny P that should have been there. At first, he thought maybe he was seeing things. After all, mint marks are small, and maybe the lighting was playing tricks on him. But after examining the coin under a magnifying glass and comparing it to other 1982 quarters, he realized he had found something extraordinary. Word spread quickly through the coin collecting community. Suddenly, everyone was checking their 1982 quarters, looking for that missing mint mark. And they were finding them, not many, but enough to confirm that this wasn't just a single freak occurrence. The U.S. Mint eventually acknowledged the error, estimating that somewhere between 500 and 2,000 of these coins had been released into circulation. Think about those numbers for a moment. In 1982, the Philadelphia Mint produced over 500 million quarters. Out of that massive production run, maybe 2,000 coins were missing the mint mark. That's roughly one error coin for every 250,000 normal quarters. Those are lottery ticket odds, which explains why these coins command such incredible prices today. The record sale for a 1982 no-P quarter happened at a major auction house in 2019 when a specimen graded MS 67, meaning it was in near-perfect, uncirculated condition, sold for $35,000. Even average circulated examples, the kind you might find in your pocket change, regularly sell for $500 to $2,000. I know collectors who have paid their mortgage for a month just from finding one of these quarters in a roll from the bank. But here's what makes the 1982 quarter story even more fascinating. The discovery of these error coins changed how the U.S. Mint operates. After the 1982 incident, the Mint implemented stricter quality control measures to prevent similar errors from happening again. They also began more carefully tracking their die production to ensure mint marks were properly applied. In a very real sense, the 1982 no-P quarter represents a turning point in American coin manufacturing. Now, you might be wondering how to spot one of these valuable quarters. It's actually simpler than you might think, but you do need to know exactly where to look. Pick up any 1982 quarter and look at the front side, where George Washington's profile faces left. Look carefully at the area just to the right of his ponytail, near his ear. On a normal 1982 quarter, you'll see a small P stamped into the coin. On the valuable error coins, that space is completely blank. I always tell people to use good lighting when searching for these coins. The mint mark area can be shadowed, and you want to be absolutely certain of what you're seeing. A simple desk lamp and a basic magnifying glass are all you need. Don't rely on overhead lighting or try to examine coins in dim conditions. You might miss a fortune. Here's a story that perfectly illustrates why the 1982 no-P quarter is so sought after. A woman named Margaret from Arizona contacted me a few years ago. She had been cleaning out her late husband's desk and found an old coffee can full of quarters. Her husband had been saving quarters for decades, planning to cash them in someday for a family vacation that sadly never happened. Margaret was about to take the whole collection to the bank when her neighbor, who knew a little about coin collecting, suggested she check for anything unusual first. Sure enough, buried in that coffee can was a 1982 no-P quarter in beautiful condition. Margaret ended up selling it to a collector for $4,800. She told me that the money helped pay for her husband's funeral expenses and left her enough to take that family vacation he had always dreamed about. It was like he had left her one final gift. The 1982 quarter is also valuable for historical reasons beyond just the error. This was during the height of the Cold War, when America was asserting its strength and identity on the world stage. The quarter itself featured the same Washington design that had been in use since 1932, representing continuity and stability during uncertain times. Finding one of these error coins is like discovering a piece of that history with a very human story attached. What's particularly interesting about 1982 quarter errors is that they're not limited to just the missing mint mark. Some 1982 quarters also exhibit what collectors call weak strikes, where the coin wasn't pressed hard enough during minting, leaving some details soft or incomplete. While these aren't as valuable as the no-P variety, they can still be worth significantly more than face value, especially in high grades. There are also 1982 quarters with die cracks, where the steel die used to strike the coins developed small fractures that appear as raised lines on the finished coins. These die crack varieties aren't as famous as the no-P quarters, but dedicated error collectors actively seek them out, and they can bring anywhere from $20 to $200 depending on the severity and location of the crack. If you're seriously interested in searching for 1982 error quarters, here's some practical advice. First, get your quarters and rolls from banks rather than just checking your pocket change. Bank rolls give you access to larger quantities of coins, increasing your odds of finding something special. Second, be systematic about your search. Examine each coin carefully before moving to the next one. It's easy to get into a rhythm and miss important details. Also, remember that condition is everything in coin collecting. A 1982 no-P quarter that's been heavily circulated, scratched, worn, or damaged might only be worth a few $100s. But the same coin in pristine, uncirculated condition could be worth thousands. If you think you found one, handle it carefully and consider having it professionally graded by a reputable service like PCGS or NGC. The beauty of hunting for 1982 error quarters is that it's still very much a treasure hunt. Unlike some rare coins that are all locked away in collections or museums, these error coins are still out there in circulation. People got them as change in 1982 and beyond, stuck them in jars and drawers, and forgot about them. Some have probably been spent and respent dozens of times, always 25 cents away from someone discovering their true value. I know collectors who have made searching for 1982 quarters their weekend hobby. They hit coin shops, banks, and even estate sales, always hoping to find that one special coin. It's become almost like a sport, with online forums where hunters share their finds and near misses. There's something addictive about the possibility that the next quarter you examine could change your financial situation. As we wrap up our journey through these remarkable 1982 quarters, remember that coin collecting connects us to moments in history when human craftsmanship and mechanical precision created something beautiful and valuable. Every 1982 no-P quarter represents a moment when the normal process went awry, creating something unique that collectors treasure today. These coins remind us that sometimes the most valuable things in life are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with knowledge and patience to discover them. Whether you're a serious collector or just someone who enjoys checking their pocket change, the story of the 1982 quarter proves that fortune can literally be found in the most ordinary places. Who knows? The next quarter you pick up could be the one that changes everything. After all, somewhere out there, in someone's change jar or piggy bank, $1 million mistakes are waiting to be discovered.